Hello ladies, welcome to Homemakers Radio. Hope you get a few things done while you listen. It's quite late right now here. I've been working a lot just trying to get here, but this will be ready for you in the morning. And I am so honored that you came to listen, and I'd like to welcome you to the manse, and I'm speaking to you from captivity. So how are the captives today? I hope that you are using the time to improve yourself. Now, remember, when I've mentioned this before, I just have to say it again, is when Samson was held captive by the Philistines, they didn't notice he was regaining his strength. So what we need to do is regain our knowledge and our strength and our vitality and become relevant to people of all ages. And so I'm giving you a few hints of that you can do, and I'm also homeschooling you. I homeschooled my own children clear up through high school, and I'd like to use some of these materials and just give you some ideas of what it was like. And actually what it is communication and talking to your own children and getting them to think and reason and enjoy life and enjoy learning, and so that you can work yourself out of a job because they'll take off on their own, learning how to find out how to do things and how to live. The other thing I'd like to talk to you about later on is children. If you have children during this intense political situation, please try to have some days that are special for the children only, and if you can possibly get your mind off of all that media and just work with your children, do things nice for them and for the house, and give them some memories. You know, when they grow up, wouldn't it be nice if they couldn't remember the trauma that their mother was under, and just try to stay away from it. I called a friend today and had such a good time talking to her, and we both said we're not paying any attention to it. We're going to do something nice for ourselves and for our house. And I think that one of the reasons that I'm so attracted to this idea of the little the art color books, the art notebooks that you keep a diary in and maybe paint something that you saw every day. I think that the reason for that is because you could put the day, write down the date, and say, I saw this today, or I used this teacup today, or I talked to so-and-so today, and just leave that as the little entry along with the drawing, and not even mention the political situation. And the reason that I thought of that was that in the past on my blog, I've often included paintings by Edmund B. Layton because he hearkened to another era when he didn't actually paint the era that he was in. He went back to the knights and ladies of the I believe the Caucasian mountains and these horses and the architecture of the castles of that era. And he when I looked up one time his dates, you know, his dates for birth and his death, he lived during a very tumultuous time in his own era, and yet he produced these beautiful paintings. But there's no hint of the terrible times that he lived in. There's no hint of the stress. He just would paint something. So when you think of this terrible stress that is upon you, you need to have something to do that you like, that is greater than. Did you know that what you're doing at home and with these children is greater than anything the news media wants to tell you? And you cannot continue to let them control your mind. So my friend and I were talking, and we both said we had decided not to listen to any of it, not to even look at it. It's difficult because if you even get a text, somebody's going to tell you something. And I decided to turn off everything, and I got busy and got a lot. You know, I got that dresser fixed that I've told you about. All the handles were missing, and I actually fixed it today. And I also did a few other technical little things. I changed out some of those little light switch plates, you know, and I had some ornamental ones that I had kept in a box for years, and I finally took those old plastic ones off and put these nice ones on. I probably should show you a picture of it. And I did all that because, you know, I'll tell you one regret that I have, and at your age you probably have some regrets of this too. I remember when we had TV and there was an uproar in some town, and the news media was just showing it over and over and over, and I got caught up in it. And even though I fixed breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I did the laundry, and I did some homeschooling with my kids, they sensed that my heart was divided. They sensed that my mind and my attention was divided and that I was on something else. They always sensed it. And sometimes children will just pull you a little closer, or they'll want you to hold their hand tighter or something like that when they sense that you're not all there for them. You know how we can sense that too with our husbands, or we can sense it with our parents, or a friend or something, that their heart they're just not, you know, all there for us. Well, children see that too, and I always regretted that I got caught up in this story, and I found out to my disgust years later that it was all news media staged, and it was put there to sell. That was in the days, you know, when they were trying to sell papers too, and the media has been known to do that ever since it began. Ever since it began in time. I could tell you stories about that, but I won't. And so don't let your children have a memory of these terrible times. Keep them away from it. Don't talk about it if you possibly can, and let's have a normal, carefree childhood for them. And doing that, you're going to have a more normal life for yourself. And let's not live in fear or constant trying to comply with every single little thing at home, because at home that's when you can have some freedom. So your children need to have a happy, carefree childhood, and they need to see their parents having a normal life and see them happy and content. And that will have, you know, you can actually harm the digestion of your children. They're not going to digest their food as well or eat as well if they're not if their mother is not settled. It's very important not to expose them to the horrors of the world. It's very important for them not to know these kind of things. When I was growing up, we didn't know any of this stuff, of course, because we didn't have constant media. And I think that, speaking from captivity, as I am in, the constant media is not as prominent. I don't hear it, I don't listen to it, and I'm not as aware of it, and I don't watch other people as much. So I think that being home and being in captivity can be a great advantage in many ways, because of course I'm enjoying ordering things, and I'm enjoying having things come to the door for me. It amuses me, and I think that it's very important that you include something you like. If you're going to order, very important to have something come to the door that you like. Include something that you like. I don't care what it is. It could be you can get on subscriptions, you know, and get these regular deliveries of floral, you know, fresh flowers, or even certain types of delicate foods, or just pampering care, and you don't have to suffer. Do the best you can at home, and to alleviate any kind of anxiety or suffering. And I think if you order something for yourself, it gives you something to look forward to. So self-care is something that is very important if you're home, and as many of us are. And I'd like to read you something I had. This is like a dictionary, only it's for the Bible, and it's called Haley's Bible Handbook. And I had found this while I was working with my books. I'm going through like 1,000 books. And I remember years ago when my children were being homeschooled that I wanted them to take some Psalms. Psalms has quite a few chapters in it. And just kind of summarize a few of the chapters. Just let's get a notebook and just tell me in a few words what this chapter was about. And I thought I was quite clever. for thinking to do that. We didn't have, any kind of workbooks or curriculum on the matter, and I wanted them to be able to read something and then tell me what it was, in simple words, what it was. So I went through this Haley's Bible Handbook, which I believe, I'm trying to think what year this was written, because I think I can remember it from when I was really young. It says 1927 was its first, her first copyright, and its first printing was 1927. And this is a reproduction because it's brand new. So I turned to the Psalms and what they had said about the Psalms, and they'd done the same thing. And I thought I was so smart. And so I'll read some of it here. There were just a few that they put in here, and it was Psalm 3, David's trust in God. At the time of Absalom's rebellion, a most remarkable example of peaceful trust at a very trying time. He could sleep because God's hand was his pillow. Isn't that delightful? God's hand was his pillow. Does that remind you of, holding a baby's head in your hand, a newborn's head in your hand? God's hand was his pillow. And it says, a most remarkable example of peaceful trust at a very trying time. So that's Psalms 3, so if you want to go and read it and think about that. A most remarkable example of peaceful trust at a very trying time. That's just delightful. He could sleep because God's hand was his pillow. But I like the part about peaceful trust at a very trying time. I have to constantly shake myself up a little bit and retune my mind when I've heard so much distressing news and say, well, God's in control, and I am not going to play their game. I'm not going to buy into it. I'm not going to be fearful. I have work to do, and it won't get my dishes done. I've been going through things and trying to, get everything neat and tidy and get rid of things and clean things, and that also is so good for your mind, to clean out a drawer, to clean out a box of things, to go through your, what I call your archives, go through all your things. And right now I'm sorting through sheets and blankets and making sure they're fresh and clean and folding them and putting them away. And in my little manse, and welcome to the manse, by the way, I have such a limited amount of storage space that I keep the linens and sheets and blankets that go with the bed in the room that it belongs to. And of course I can change them all out, but that's one thing that I'm doing right now, is putting everything so that when I change the bedding and change the sheets, I don't have to trot way back to a linen closet and get something out. So what I do is I keep it in the room that it belongs in. So that's my hint for the house. And I want to talk a little bit about how important it is to get dressed and to fix your face and your hair and, feel good about yourself and about the day, because actually the day is the most important thing, because we don't know we're going to have another day. This is the day. And if you would like to look as though you are rejoicing, I think it's important to take care of your appearance. A lot of feminism has come into the idea of appearance in many ways, and one of them is they're either overdoing it and making women exaggerated in their look, or they're not doing anything at all, and the women are just going around looking, I used to say, like something the cat dragged in. And so we as Christian ladies, we know how to be moderate and how to glorify God in our appearance. I think it's very important to do that. I have on occasion made the mistake of saying, I just won't do anything to myself today because I'm just going to kind of take a day off from it, and for some reason I don't feel as motivated. So I always get up and take care. I have been trying to get up, unless I'm not feeling well and I need to go back to bed, I will get up and get myself ready, because I believe that I am more productive. Why don't you experiment with that and see if you are more productive on the day that you take care of yourself and put some special care into it. And now that so many of you are home, you have maybe a little more time to concentrate on making yourself orderly, making yourself well-groomed, and also helping yourself have some self-respect in your appearance. I have found a song here that I want to talk about, and it's called Stand By Me. And it's not the same as the popular song Stand By Me. And I was just reading it. I was kind of sorting through. We have a lot of different kinds of songbooks, different editions, and our family sings together when we're together. And this was the one, and I'm sure all of you know it. I have looked for it on YouTube to see if I could post it also on this post that I'm doing for you here, but I couldn't find it. And it's When the Storms of Life Are Raging, Stand By Me. I'm sure some of you know that one. And I was reading through it and thinking how nice it sounds when the whole congregation is singing this, or we have a fifth Sunday singing and there's just a whole lot of people singing, and they love to sing this song, and how nice it sounds. But I was also thinking that it would be harder to sing it when there wasn't a crowd around. What would happen if you were alone and you found yourself alone for long periods of time? This song talks about that. Let me read you the stanzas, and see what you think about it. It just occurred to me while I was reading it. Yes, it's great to hear the throng singing this song. We all love the idea, Stand By Me. It's talking to the Lord. What if you were alone? That is even more important. When the storms of life are raging, stand by me. When the storms of life are raging, stand by me. When the world is tossing me like a ship upon the sea, thou who rulest wind and water, stand by me. That is very interesting. When the world is tossing me like a ship upon the sea. That's what the worldly forces are doing to us with the political situation and the era that we live in. It's not so much the era that we live in, it's what these godless people are doing with it and dominating our minds with it. God made this era, and we can live it beautifully. It's just that the enemy likes to come in and spoil it for us. Just like I said, you know, they spoiled the 1960s. I was a teenager in the 1960s, and all I can remember is the bad things that the papers and the magazines said about the 1960s. It was so much shock value in everything, that they tried to make us think that the world was changing and that we had to move along with it, and we never got any peace. And yet, in many ways, the 1960s were a beautiful time. It was a time when I remember there was a lot of more manufacturing, and we could get fabric, and there were a lot of things available that weren't. Like, I remember in the olden days, when we had a pen, it had a little lever on it, and you had to stick it in some ink and pull the lever out, and it would suck the ink into the pen. That was a fountain pen. And then you had to close the lever. I found that pen the other day. I'll have to show it to you sometime. And then the ballpoint pens came out more prominently in the 60s. And how thrilled I was to get a ballpoint pen. Of course, they had the cartridges, and you still had to replace them. But there were some good things about the 1960s, and there were actually some very good music. There was folk music, and there was country music, and there were other things. And yet, the powers that be, the media especially, had to spoil it for us and to make it sour, leave a sour taste in our mouth. Well, this is what's happening now. The Lord gave us this era, and but the powers that be want to sour it for us, so that when we remember the year 2020, we'll remember it with such great sorrow. But in my life, there were many of my descendants had birthdays, and had wonderful celebrations. And also, we had there was a lot of joy. And that's why I'm thinking that it would be very wise for you to keep a little diary and write down only the good things that happen, so that you don't end up looking at the era that we live in as some kind of poison. And remember the man that I said painted pictures no matter what. Okay, let me read the next verse to you. In the midst of tribulations, stand by me. When the hosts of hell assail and my strength begins to fail, thou who never lost a battle, stand by me. Think about that. God's not going to give up on us. And God, Christ is our King. We don't have to worry about our citizenship is in heaven, and Christ is our King. And so we have something greater than what's going on this earth. But that's what makes us good citizens, and that's what makes the world more tolerable, is having Christians around that trust in the Lord. He will answer our prayers. When I'm growing old and feeble, stand by me. When my life becomes a burden and I'm facing chilly Jordan, O thou lily of the valley, stand by me. Now, of course, that is a pleasant song to listen to when you've got a throng of people around. But to think of yourself alone and singing this is different, very different, and very significant. I have another thing that I'd like to read to you, and this is from the figures of speech used in the Bible. I find it remarkable that people had the patience and the fortitude to write these thick books where they have gone through and found words in the Bible, and it's kind of like a dictionary, and they've gone to a lot of work there. I find it just terribly remarkable. Now, I was reading this figure. You know how the reason I think figures of speech are so important is because if a culture loses their figures of speech, they lose their languages, they lose the meaning of their language, because figures of speech just gives a more depth to more meaning to something. And we have some witty sayings, and you start losing your witty sayings, and then pretty soon another culture can come and take over. Maybe a godless culture could come and take over, because they could teach you something that was contrary to what your beliefs are, because you don't know very much about what something means. Now, that's hard to explain, but I found this, and I looked up the word day, because I was going to talk about how this is the day that the Lord has made, and I wanted to see what this figures of speech had for the word day. And I found this. The day, sometimes the word day is used for an indefinite time. This is very important to understand, because when you're reading the Bible, this is called figures of speech in the Bible. When you're reading the Bible, you can get caught up in some tiny little thing and say, well, God must have lied, because he said, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Because we know, of course, it wasn't made in a day. It was made in 7 days. But here's what it says in Genesis 2, verse 4. In the day that the Lord made the earth and the heavens. Here, the phrase, in the day, answers part of the first line. But basically, it's like when I say back in the day. It didn't mean a literal day. I don't mean a literal day when I say back in the day. It's a figure of speech. Everything has to be examined in light of what it's talking about. So, in the day that the Lord is called, Genesis 2:4, when they were created, in the day when the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Here, in the day, answers when. And so, it just means at the time, or a period of time. So, when the word day is mentioned, does not always mean exactly what we think it is. And of course, the Bible was not written in English originally, and they had many different words in Hebrew to mean something, whereas we have this one word day. We have a lot of problem with that. In the New Testament, the English has one word, love, but the Greek has 3 or 4. And we use the same word meaning all those 3 or 4 types of love. And I think it's really important to teach kids that if you're homeschooling your children. If you're not, then I'm just homeschooling you. Okay, so now I want to go on to ideas about how to handle people who seem to want to entrap you with arguing. Have you ever had anyone in your life or known anyone that no matter how friendly you were and how kind you were to them, they wanted to argue. They wanted to entrap you. They were just very derisive and cynical, and perhaps you had an old uncle that used to do that, and to trap you into an argument, or you could say hello, how are you, and they would tell you that you didn't care, or they would find a way to make it seem like you were hateful. So what happens when you get in a situation where someone wants to argue all the time? Well, I've been thinking about that all day. And I had thought of something clever, like, this is a new year, and I have been thinking about resolutions. And one of the resolutions is I would like to improve some things so that I can be more effective in the gospel. And one of the things I'd like to do is argue less or not at all. And maybe you could help me. And I also want to stop engaging in contradiction and in fruitless conversations. And that's another thing you can do, is also tell people that you've made a vow and you're not going to argue anymore, and just smile whenever whenever the person wants to have some people just get don't you think that some people just get their fuel that way? They really don't know what they're talking about. They really don't even know how to argue, but they enjoy playing a game of cat and mouse with you. And that means, you come out a little bit and you're a little bit friendly, and they chase you back into your wanting to just clam up because they're so cruel with this kind of behavior. And I think, of course, if you've got children, you need to pay. So many times the mother, she's washing dishes or something, and the children are just playing somewhere at a little distance from her, and she's not paying much attention. She's absorbed in her own thoughts. I think it's really important to listen to the children and to see how they're communicating, and to be the main communicator with them, and not let them develop a way of communication that could one day be very harmful with other people or in their future mates. I think it's really important. I also think it's important not to be contradicting the children all the time, because they'll contradict you later on. And so while we want to teach them and gently train them, I think it's really important not to have hasty, sharp replies and to be too contradictory. It's not a good habit. Most of the people that I have been acquainted with that were in this bad habit of constantly contradicting or arguing or trying to pick a fight, it was something that was in their childhood that was overlooked and not trained out of them. And I will tell you, don't rely on the public schools to see it or care about it. This is why it's so important to have really good, strong home training, and to have a regular session where you teach children how to talk in a polite way. And one of the things that we enjoyed so much was reading. And in those days, you could get a play. It was like just a folded piece of paper, and it had characters and what they would say. And so you would assign each child to a character. You be so-and-so, and you be so-and-so. And so they would look on the script, and they would know who they were. And they would have a play. And we used to write plays, too, and our children used to write plays. and write dramas and plays and have characters. And these characters would say things, and the other character would say something back to them, and then they would learn how people acted and how they talked. And I don't think I can emphasize that enough to you, but I wonder if it might be good to write out a script and pass it around and teach your children how to speak politely to one another. And then what we used to do too is have the wrong way. Write a script that's the wrong way, and then write a script that is the right way. So the script that's the wrong way is terribly rude, and of course it'll just erupt in peals of laughter because it's so ridiculous, and the children would know it. That's how important humor is, because if something is kind of laughable because it's ridiculous, they don't want to do it. It's just comedy to them. But write a script that's the wrong way to speak and the right way to speak and to interact with people, and put a couple characters there, and you can play act with them, and it's just enormously revealing and enjoyable, and they'll bring you closer together too. Now, I have been reading some very heavy things this week, but I have also been kind of amusing myself by, if I have any spare time, I want to sit down, going on the web and looking for interesting life stories of other people. And I have been finding stories of people who were Amish when they were growing up, who have left that religion but have kept some of the good things of the Amish. And they know how to build, and they're good farmers, and they know how to cook, and all those skills, and to keep all those skills. And one of the things that I was listening to about them that was so interesting, another thing I noticed is that they were such happy people when they had come out of it, and were enjoying things like learning to drive a car, and having electricity in their house, and they did so delighted with it. And it's kind of like they came out of captivity, but and they also hang on to their values, and I really, really liked it. And one explanation that I heard that I thought I might share with you, and I couldn't even tell you which one I was watching, but this young man his heritage was Amish, and although he wasn't in the Amish community, he had done a lot of research on it, and he had said that back in the 17 and 1800s, when the Amish first formed they were a religious group, everybody had a horse and a buggy. Everybody wore, all the men in society wore the kind of suit with the typical type of buttons, and the type of trousers, and they wore the same kind of black hat, but it was pretty typical. And you can even find old photographs sometimes of people in that era. They all kind of looked that way, and everybody lived the same kind of lifestyle. And it was before it was common to have electricity and plumbing in the homes. And so the Amish was mainly a religion. But then as the world began to get more automated, and people had cars, and people had telephones, then the Amish decided to make that a point of fellowship. You couldn't go back, you couldn't go into the new ways, so they started to make rules about how many buttons you would have on your and what color your garment was, and forbid certain ways of doing your hair, or certain ways of just about everything. It was all physical. It was all physical. So these young people that are coming out of that are wanting to know, well, what does the Bible teach? And unfortunately, the religion would always say, we don't really need to know much about that. We have our traditions. And so this is one thing that I thought was so interesting, because we need to be really careful about that we remember that the principles of the Christian life is to love and to obey the Lord. And in spite of the fact that we're in captivity, those are two things that we can still do. And we want to make sure that we don't feel that we're in captivity by man, but Jesus Christ is our captor. He's captured our hearts, and that's the only thing that we need to be in captivity for. And so, ladies, I hope that you can get a few things done while you do this. I have had a few things that I wanted to talk to you about, but don't have them with me today. So when I get finished, it's quite late here right now, but tomorrow I've got to go look. I've had 2 requests from my kids to find things. So one of the children wants me to go find something from some books that they used to have. And the other one wants me to find some tapes. Remember tapes? Tapes and tape recorders. You know, but I still have them. So everyone teases me and Mr. S because if they want something, and just on the off chance that we might have it, we always do. And then I'm going to finish putting the blankets and sheets away tomorrow, and I'm going to finish a few repairs around here. And I noticed there was some paint chipping on one of the cabinets. I want to fix that. And I'm going to try to make a grocery list for the grocery store, and also put away a few more books. And I wonder what you're going to do. So since this is so late, I'm going to say goodbye. It's only half an hour that I've spoken to you, but maybe you can get some use out of it. And I hope that I will be able to come more often, and I'm so glad that you came. And thank you for your prayers, and thank you for those of you who send donations. It's just the sweetest thing, and it's enabling me to do a lot more. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.